Tiffany says, currently having a conversation with an atheist who strongly believes in evolution. Any advice on how to share the good news? Yeah, share the good news. Don't worry about the evolution. If you argue evolution, you're on their court. You've lost home court advantage. But you talk about the Bible and Jesus, God's love for you. That'll work on them.
Why would that make an atheist do anything other than go, it's no home court advantage to completely change the game, not unless you can persuade your opponent to play. What makes you think most atheists haven't already heard your alleged good news? Why would you think that? It's already been rejected. Maybe preaching it again isn't your best tactic. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. In my time arguing against theists, what I've encountered is this tendency, mostly from Christians, to argue in favor of their religion as if the person they're debating is already one of them. Indeed, as he said, their tactics are not so much to persuade with facts and reasoned argument, but rather with preaching. And somehow they don't see the flaw in preaching to an audience whose position is that the sermons are unpersuasive. Also, I want to apologize for his sound quality. I've done what I can, but he's the one who overloaded his mic, and there isn't much I can do about that on my end.
And really, when you're talking to an atheist about evolution and you want to get them saved and you stay in that realm of evolution, what you've done is you've stayed in the realm of the intellect. And the gospel is not an intellectual thing per se. The gospel is a spiritual concept.
But when talking to someone who values the intellect over spirituality, indeed, who probably thinks spirituality is complete bunk, well, if, as he says, the idea is to see those he's speaking to be, quote-unquote, saved, what needs to happen is to show that you're right. And if you're trying to convince someone who values facts over feelings, data over dogma, experiment over evangelizing, you have to show them that the evidence is on your side. Read the room. Argue to your audience, not against them. If the goal is conversion, you're just plain doing it wrong. If I may indulge in a little geekery, it's like trying to argue that Luke Skywalker isn't a great Jedi by saying Sir Lancelot is a better swordsman.
So you have to find a way to go from the intellectualism of evolution into the spirituality of the gospel. You have to find a way to segue out of that.
You want to know the best way to not be talking about evolution? Don't be a creationist in the first place, or at least keep it to yourself. See, we're only having the evolution discussion because religious people want creation taught in schools, by either teaching it as an alternate theory or even removing the teaching of evolution altogether. But public schools are not churches, and your beliefs should not be taught in them. Nobody's beliefs should. Just the facts, ma'am, and the facts aren't on your side. That is, if you're a creationist. Plenty of Christians accept evolution. We wouldn't even be having the conversation if you people would just shut up. You pretty much brought this particular drubbing on yourselves. And trying to change topics when you're obviously losing, but without conceding defeat, is, frankly, dishonest. You're gaslighting yourselves, and that's just tragic. But you're also trying to convert people, which means you'll have to confront the issue of evolution. You can't avoid it because it will come up eventually. If this was just a debate, you might get away with not talking about it, but you have to persuade your converts to accept creationism at some point, and not talking about it, not debating the intellectual and factual merits of evolution and creation isn't how you'll manage that.
And that's something that God has to give you wisdom on. And you just have to kind of find a way to, he's going to try to suck you into well, what do you do with this? What do you do with that? What do you do with the Big Bang? I mean, just, and he's going to quote, basically all they're going to do is regurgitate what Bill Nye and that that Tyson guy, that black scientist. That's what they're going to do.
That black scientist? Are you kidding me? Even if that wasn't racist, it's also super dismissive. Either way, it's indefensible. That said, I could level the same accusation right back. You'll probably regurgitate some Ken Ham or Ray Comfort nonsense yourself. So, where does that leave us? And this is another problem with theist arguments, treating scientists like they're atheist priests and treating science like dogma or doctrine. It's ridiculous, but one lesson critics of atheism seem unable or unwilling to learn is that atheism isn't like a religion and neither is science. Treating either like a religion leads to really bad, quite irrelevant arguments against either one. It's like treating cars and rollerblades as if they're the same because both are means of transportation. The similarities are only superficial. The underlying concepts are completely different animals.
They're just going to regurgitate all that information, and when you get them out of that arena, then you can actually help them. And so that's the hard part.
I'd go so far as saying it's the next to impossible part. I'd say completely impossible, but I'm sure that there are exceptions out there illuminating the rule. These people are pointing out a problem with your beliefs, and you can't do an end run around the need to patch those holes. A religion or denomination which accepts evolution won't have this problem. They'll have others, but not that one. But if you want to convert someone convinced of evolution to ditch it in favor of creationism, this isn't how to do it. Now you might ask why I, as an atheist, would be giving this kind of advice to a theist. Well, a couple of reasons, really. One, I'm bored. I've been doing YouTube atheism videos for 11 or 12 years now. I accidentally deleted a bunch of my earliest videos, but the oldest still remaining is from 2008. And I can't remember the last time I encountered a new, as yet undebunked argument from a godbotherer. I don't even know how long it's been. Maybe since I first started. Two, I'd like to have a discussion that is about finding what is so instead of looking for some advantage, some silver bullet or slam dunk argument. Finding the truth should not be a competition. Three, most of the atheists willing to argue the topic with you have already examined religion, usually more thoroughly than most believers, and they found a double-wide buttload of plot holes, factual errors, and contradictions. If you want to persuade them to your side, you're going to have to patch those holes in ways that satisfy someone who isn't already on your side. You can't avoid it. If you preach to an atheist like they're a believer, you'll get nowhere. What worked for you won't work for them, and trying it is just a waste of time. And, as I said, I'm bored with that. So that's why I would give advice to my putative opponent in this debate, so that the debate can be a challenge and just plain more fun. Before I go, I just want to say hooray for me! I finally hit 25,000 subscribers. It really ought to be at least 5 times that, but whatever. Also, on a whim, I decided to make my own playing cards to bring to game night. We don't play traditional games very much, usually preferring the more geek culture games, but it's not unheard of. Being the sci-fi nerd that I am, I gave each card a unique space-based background and made the suits look futuristic. The face cards are all characters from Quinn Redshift, the animation I'm working on, and the backs are the title logo. I enjoyed the experience so much that I might try making my own game. I had an idea a while ago about UFOs attacking a medieval kingdom, where livestock are the resources being either abducted or slaughtered for resources in order to buy upgrades for keeps or flying saucers. I'm gonna call it Abductions and Dragons. I also considered the titles A Midsummer Night's Scream, The Excalibur Files, and Area 1451. Those could come in handy if the game takes off and I feel the need to make expansions. I've also been looking into the idea of making it into a PC game instead. There are some engines out there where coding can be done as drag and drop. It might be harder to produce, but it would certainly cost less. I'm still working out the kinks of gameplay, and I haven't even started on artwork. Plus, I should probably finish one project before I start another, and I began Quinn Redshift first. Still, it's an idea. I might have to talk to Rationality Rules about how he's making and distributing his own card game. I figure there has to be a way to sell it online similar to selling t-shirts and other swag where it's all automated once I've made the template. Oh well, it's only an idea at this point, but let me know what you think. And until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. It's no home corn advantage. Why do I keep doing that? Ugh. In my time arguing against theists, what I've encountered is this tendency, and somehow they don't see the flaw in preaching to an audience. What the fuck's wrong with me? Yes, what I've encountered is this tendency, mostly from Christians, to argue. Oh, there goes the kitty. Treating either like a religion leads to really bad, quite irrelevant arguments.
And remember, if it can't be in your hand, it's all in your head.